Ladies and gentlemen, in this RedGamingTech.com video, we have an absolute bucket load of rumours concerning the Xbox 720. Now, these rumours are extremely controversial. They've been running around the internet for the last day or so. However, originated from Pastebin and has also appeared on NeoGAF and various other bits and pieces. Now, apparently, the person himself is actually a NeoGAF member, but he's not willing to out himself because he's fearful of losing his job. So, I don't know how true these rumours are, but if they are true, it's pretty damn impressive, actually, and let's just say a lot of these rumours are going to be extremely, I don't even know the word other than amazing, concerning the Xbox 720. So I'm just going to go in and I'm going to let you guys know what the rumours are predominantly, and then we'll discuss them afterwards. I figure that's the best way. So the first one is concerning the always on. Now, the rumours are stating that it was not ever intended. They were never considering it. They were never thinking about it. It was just a set of rumours that were created somehow or another, and they just spiraled out of control. But Microsoft were never ever planning on it to begin with. Moving on to the next rumour. This concerns the specifications of the Xbox 720. Now, apparently, the specifications are 100% accurate, so I'll just quickly go over them. That's an 8-core Jaguar running at 1.6 GHz, 8 GB of DDR3 RAM, and, of course, 12 GCN cores, which are clocked at apparently 800 MHz. However, there is a major difference. There is almost a secret. Now, bear in mind, the leaks we have had up until this point have not confirmed this. There doesn't seem to be any confirmation of this, but nevertheless, in this particular leak, and I'll read you a quote, "Except for one little detail that MS has kept guarded from most of the developers until recently, that detail being that every Durango ships with an Xbox 360 SoC. There was a reason why MS hired so many former IBM and AMD employees. I'll admit, I'm not an electrical engineer. I'm in software, so I won't pretend to know the ins and outs of how the 360 integrates with the Durango motherboard. All I know, and all I need to know about this new change is that I, or a game developer, can use the Xbox 360 SoC, that's a system on a chip, out of quote, in parallel with the original Durango hardware. What does that mean in basic terms? Well, apart from the Durango having 100% BC, backwardly compatible, out of quote, with the 360, it also increases Durango's processing power a fair amount, out of quote. We'll discuss that in a moment because that's quite big and I don't want to start distracting from the rest of the rumours. I know you guys are going to be itching on that, but just hold fire. It's only fair to everyone who wants to hear the rest of them first. They are the rumoured specifications for Kinect 2 are 100% right. However, the fact is, and this is a quote, however, the fact is that the software can do anything, and with quite substantial increase in the hardware over Kinect 1, any humanly noticeable lag should be gone. I'll emphasize that one more point. Any lag from the console, any noticeable lag anyway, will be removed. I'm going to move on real quick to the controller. Now, the controller is pretty much the same. Out of quote for a second, you guys may remember I've done another video on this, and I'd highly encourage you to check these other videos out, by the way. I'll probably link a few, but the controller, from what the other leaks have said, does seem to be the case. Anyway, I'm going to move back onto the quote. The D-pad has been improved, but the only change will be noticeable when actually using it. I.e., it looks exactly the same. I haven't actually touched it, but what I've been told, IA batteries will make a return, but the new wireless tech MS has created for the controller improves the battery life by 16%. Indeed, this is just what the docs says, so he doesn't know this for 100%, he's just reading whatever his tech manuals and documentation has told him. Now we're going to move on to the Xbox Mini rumours and Xbox TV. I'll read a quote. Once again, I think that's the best way. Yes, this is happening. Although, as far as I know, it's a whole different team over at MS that are handling this. As has been reported, its main purpose is to compete with the Xbox TV, so expect this thing to be small and around $100. It contains the 360 SoC, similar to the one in the Durango. However, no disk drive is included to decrease the size, but of course you can still play any XBLA games on demand. That's all I really know about the XTV, so you have it. So I'll leave it at that. Farrett seems to know more than anyone else about this, so go ask him. Out of quote for a second, guys. The Xbox Mini and Mini TV actually have been confirmed by another set of leaks. Well, confirmed is a strong word, but at least rumoured by other sets of leaks. And we know that the manufacturing processes of the Xbox Mini are going to be very refined. This isn't really a surprise by now. After all, we're moving on to ridiculously late technology. I've already mentioned in another video that we're not that far behind Xbox 360/PS3 computing power right now in terms of mobile technology. There are some issues such as bandwidth, but still. So in a couple of years' time, we're certainly going to be able to compete Xbox 360-wise in terms of raw flops of power. So anyway, getting back onto this, we're going to be discussing OS/services. I wish I knew more about this. This is once again a quote, but I honestly don't. I have no clue what sort of new ideas MS are going to bring to the table this gen, but I'm certainly expecting them to amaze. The only thing I know is for definite is that Windows 8 will be running on Durango. It will essentially be a full version of the operating system minus the desktop side of things. This means it'll be running a new WinRT framework, which as a side effect means that contrary to popular belief, MS will be most indie-friendly of all big three next gen. I'm going to come out of quote for a second for the moment, guys, because I just want to back this up with something. There has been a recent document, or should I say, a recent series of quotes from a big indie developer. The name slips my mind for a second. He's a very successful one. I was going to do a video on this, but I just wanted to quickly mention it on this one. He's actually said that he's actually very impressed with the support that Microsoft have given them recently. So whether this actually does refer to this whole Windows 8 thing, I don't know. I'm just merely pointing it out. Anyway, I'm going to go back to the quote. So this is because any app/game that is created for Win App Store will, after adding controller support of course, be playable on Durango. In other words, any random person worldwide can pay Microsoft a $60 licensing fee for the Windows Store and submit their app game to the store where millions of people can download it and buy it. No expensive development kits needed except to hear from more on WinRT Durango at Build 2013. And here he's saying that that's pretty much it, and he's just kind of closing out and saying you have to wait for May for all of this stuff to be confirmed. Now, I'll be honest with you guys, I'm going to tackle this one thing at a time, but I'm going to first of all speak about the specifications. Now, there is some stuff in this video that I think I could probably talk about for quite a while, and it's possible I may create 2 videos of this because I want to actually do some further research on what this developer's been talking about as well as some other things. I don't like to just talk out of hand. I would do it for this video, but quite honestly, I have a feeling this video is going to turn out to be fairly lengthy as is, and I don't want to turn this into like an hour-long thing, because you guys, you know, I'm sure some of you would be happy to listen to it, but obviously some of you may not be, and time-wise, and I don't want to start, you know, giving misinformation, because that's not fair to any viewers, okay? So, once again, we're going to talk about the specifications. Now, I'm going to very briefly talk about the Windows 8 thing. If this is true, this is going to be fantastic. I'm going to do a video on this, as well as the developers, primarily, but I just want to give my initial thoughts. My initial thoughts are, holy crap. I know that's not exactly scientific of me, or very analytical of me, but that's incredible. If that's true, Microsoft are going to be doing a serious PR. Obviously, there are going to be some caveats. In, say, 7 years' time, there are going to be problems with indie games working on the system. In other words, the specifications are going to certainly be a problem of the console, but for the time being, it's not going to be. The Xbox 720 is going to easily outshine anything that most indie developers are going to put out, and that's a very, very good news. The fact of the matter is that if you have any experience writing something for Windows, there's a good chance that you're going to just be able to hit the ground running, and that's incredible. Now, as for Kinect 2, to be honest, I've mentioned before, I am quite happy about the fact that they aren't putting so much emphasis on this as what I thought. Initially, anyway. I'm also happy it's going to be less lag. Personally, once again, I'm probably going to get negative comments saying it's the best thing since sliced bread. I don't like Kinect. I know I've said this a million times over. I just don't care about it. It's one of the reasons that I liked the Wii for the games on it, but I didn't like the control method. I just be honest, I just didn't. It's just some stuff I'm just more comfortable with a standard controller or, keyboard and mouse. It's just that simple. And with Kinect, I think it could have some uses in regards to, say, operating system functionality or web browsing. It could be really good. But games, nah, not my thing. Certain games, okay, it could be good for gimmicks, but generally speaking, I am not that bothered about it. I'll just be completely and utterly honest. But it is good that they are improving it. Lag was a major issue. Now we're going to talk about the actual real meat here, the real meat in the gravy and every other bloody part of the course. And that would be the actual specifications. Now, let's talk a little bit about the PS4. We know the PS4 definitely has higher specification than Durango if the rest of these specifications are true. Taking out the SoC for a minute, let's just pretend the SoC never exists just for a moment. The PS4 definitely has benefits over the Durango in terms of raw computational power, specifically on the GCN cores. It's quite as simple as saying it has more. Okay? Now, let's for a moment analyze the SoC. Now, in terms of cost and everything else, I wouldn't be surprised if they could do it. There are a number of reasons for this. One, the Xbox 360 parts are very cheap now. Look how much, say, the Xbox Mini is going to cost, $99, and that's with everything else included. There are other benefits to this, 100% backwards compatibility. Sony have actually done this on, say, the PlayStation 2. There is basically the PlayStation 1 CPU in there, along with a few other bits and pieces, and that's why any PS2 can play any PS1 game. It's simple, it works, and it's great, and it's fantastic. Having said that, and I'm going to talk about a few of the negatives here, there are a couple of reasons I'm somewhat dubious about this. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm just, giving my thoughts on this as honest thoughts. There are a couple of reasons I'm somewhat unsure about this. The first is that we've had contrary rumours. Now, the contrary rumours, you guys may remember, I've just done a video on this, mentioned that the Xbox 720 links in with the Xbox Mini, and you basically put the disc, your Xbox 360 disc. So let's say, for example, you own Gears of War Judgment, for example, for the Xbox 360, and you want to play that. What you would do is you would basically put your Xbox 360 Gears of War Judgment into the Xbox 720. I'm just going to call it Durango. So you put it in the Durango, and that acts as a pass-through, and the actual processing, however, is done on the Xbox Mini. However, all control is effectively done by Durango. In other words, the Durango is actually acting as the control unit, and all this is doing is basically acting as a pass-through. This, however, is saying that this is not true. It would negate these rumours. As far as I understand it, as far as I'm reading it, it says this is not the case. Now, maybe if there are certain benefits to linking it in, I can only assume stuff like Xbox TV, but the Xbox TV, from previous rumours, has said that that's not the case either. The previous rumours with the Xbox TV is that that is actually part of Durango. In other words, both systems, that would be the Xbox Mini and Durango, will have the same TV functionality where you can, have overlays and blah 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 with live TV. I'm not going to go too much into that in this particular video. So there's that small problem. The other small problem is the fact that no other leaks, no other analysis when various, what shall I say, technical details have been shown, have demonstrated that this is the case. In other words, if you were to look at the various technical documents, there have been no space where the SoC would go. I can't really put it any other way. I don't necessarily know. I don't necessarily know if it precludes. There were a couple of parts of the Xbox 720 that were somewhat unknown, but I don't think it was an Xbox SoC from my personal memory. Now, of course, SoC is basically a system on a chip. That would be the same as the Jaguar, or even, say, the PS4 has. Of course, we know that that's using a Jaguar. All it basically is the CPU, the GPU, the memory controller, blah, 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 on the same, effectively the same system. It's on a small circuit board, effectively the same die. Just to simplify it. I'm not saying that this precludes that. There are a couple of reasons. One, the leaks are old. In other words, they are not from yesterday. Things change. I believe the original hardware leaks were sometime in 2011. It's now 2013. It's not inconceivable that 2 years down the line, by 2 years down the line, major changes to the hardware could be implemented. Indeed, it wasn't too long ago, it was actually 2012, that rumours were floating about the internet that the Xbox 720 was completely different hardware-wise to what we expect now. Indeed, there were rumours that it was going to be a 4-core CPU or a 6-core CPU with one core dedicated to OS, another dedicated to Kinect, and the other 4 to the games. And indeed, there were even further rumours that it was going to be 2 Radeon 6000 series cards in there that were not in Crossfire configuration, and indeed those cards could draw separately, which is very different to how Crossfire works on the PC. So in other words, I've used this example I think before in another video, but I'll just use it again. Imagine you have a table, and that table has a vase on it, or vase, however you wish to pronounce it, and you therefore could have effectively the one card rendering one object, for example a table, and the other one the ornamentation on top of it, in this case the vase. That's my understanding. That was the original rumours. Since then, those have been thrown out. And now, of course, we have the Jaguar. My point being that rumoured specifications can change really quickly. In other words, one doesn't necessarily mean that the other is false. In fact, it could have just simply been hardware stages, where they're just thinking, should this work? No, we're going to chuck this out. And it just happens that the thrown out one, or the one that they, maybe they had a short list, maybe one of those got leaked. It's hard to say. I'm merely pointing out that currently the Xbox 360 SoC was not even hinted. However, the guy is saying that it was hidden. In other words, they didn't want developers to know this. I don't really understand why they wouldn't want developers to know this. From my perspective, I'm not a hardware designer, I'm not a console designer, but from my perspective, I would imagine it would just be in their interests for the developers to know that stuff. But I don't know for 100%. Maybe they just want to keep it secret. If it is true, it means that you will not need Xbox Mini. That has a number of benefits. First of all, it reduces the cost. That means that if you haven't previously purchased an Xbox 360 and you want to play those games, it lowers your barrier to entry price. The other benefit for this is that people who have a 360 and they don't necessarily want to have 2 consoles, they don't need it. In other words, it completely absolves them of all problems with backwards compatibility. In other words, it will have full backwards compatibility, which is something obviously the Xbox 360 really lacked. The Xbox 360 backwards compatibility was hit and miss and really had to be programmed. They kind of abandoned it actually at some points. So yeah, it would basically be the equivalent of, say, the original PS2 with PS1, which would obviously be a benefit. It would also be another benefit because let's assume that you owned a PS3 now, okay? But let's assume that the Xbox 720 is the console that you want. Let's say the PS4 for you, you know what? I don't mind it. But a couple of my friends are already getting the Durango, and Xbox Live looks good. I'll go for that. The benefit is that you've got a huge back catalogue of titles that are available, and of course, Microsoft, if they've got any sense, will not immediately cut support to their previous console. Sega did that for the Saturn and even the Mega Drive or Genesis if you're in the US, and when they did, it actually really pissed off their previous customers. So there's that to think of as well. Sony, of course, are going the Gaikai route or cloud-based, but that at the moment is going to be a lot more fiddly. Why is it going to be more fiddly? Because, quite simply put, they have to actually worry about internet latency as well as other issues as well. There is, however, another concern that I have in regards to the specifications. Now, they've not really mentioned how the SoC works. In other words, he's not given that many details on it. But one of the concerns I have is that the units are very different. Now, I don't know what modifications they have made to this SoC. This is important. I don't, but if it stands how it is, the problem is you've got DX9 hardware, and the Durango is supposedly DX11. That means that certain GPU functions simply could not be ran on the Durangos, or sorry, on the Xbox 360 hardware. It just can't be done. You cannot run DX11 on DX9. You can, but then of course it's basically in compatibility mode, or not running those functions. It's that simple. Now, there are ways I can somewhat think of to get around this. Once again, I am not a hardware engineer. These are just a few ideas that I could think of. One, it could be used for functionality that is not necessarily GPU based. In other words, not, say, I don't know, DX11 pathways. In other words, it could be used for, say, I don't know, parallel computing, or it could be used for say, processing of video. It could be used for, say, CPU-based tasks or AI or what have you. There are those possibilities, but I'm not really sure. The other concern I have with this is that if you're a developer, you've not only got to then concern yourself with the Xbox 720's CPU and GPU, naturally, the built-in native ones. The problem with this, in my opinion, is that it could lead a lot of extra complexity. For example, let's assume that you have the Xbox 360 SoC to do something that it can do, say texture streaming or texture compression, or say, I don't know, drawing the heads-up displays and whatever else it needs to do. I'm just making stuff up, by the way. I'm not saying that this is what it will do. But let's assume that, that kind of stuff is what it's for. Basically, texture streaming and various other things that it doesn't really need to worry about DX11 pathways. The other thing that I have some doubt about with these rumors is that, well, quite simply put, as I was saying, let's assume it does handle texture streaming and whatever else, okay? The worry I have is that if the level of complexity is just going to become insane. For a start, the Durango has memory bandwidth issues. Assuming we know that it's going to be using DDR3 if the rumor specifications are true, and this guy is saying that they are true. So let's assume it is using DDR3, and let's assume it's also reliant upon the fast RAM, which gives it the same amount of memory bandwidth as the PS4. Problem is, as we know, the fast memory, which I believe is 32 megabytes, is small, and it's been assumed by people in the know that the idea behind this is that this fast RAM will basically handle common instructions, therefore it will be, let's say, integral to getting the most out of the performance of Durango. Okay, so we know that. We know the APU, the Jaguar, of course, has the GCN cores, which can do various bits and pieces, parallel computing, of course, for physics, or for video decoding, or AI, and, all the bits and pieces I've talked about millions of times now for both the PS4 and the Xbox 720. Okay, and of course you've got the CPU, which obviously has eight cores. But now you've also got the added fun of this extra SoC. So the problem I've got with this is simple. You now have even more to code for. This makes the system that much more complex. Now, once again, I'm not a hardware developer, but if I were a software developer, if I was writing a game and it was, needing to use all this, I would certainly be thinking this is more complicated than the PS4. I mean, the PS4 is just better out the gate in terms of raw power, okay? Assuming the rest of the specifications are true, okay? Ignore the SoC for a moment. The PS4, if the rest of the rumors are true, the PS4 has more computational power, okay? So let's include the SoC for a moment. Now, the Xbox 720 will have about 1.2, 1.3, something like that, teraflops or T-flops if you prefer, of processing power. Now, the PS4, on the other hand, is pushing about 1.79, 1.8, around that figure. In other words, more. Even if you were to factor in this Xbox SoC, the Xbox 360 SoC, Xbox 360 has around, I believe, 240, 250 G-flops. It's still behind, okay? The PS4, not as far behind, but still. So, the problem I've got right now is that it's just as simple as it's that much more complicated. And I don't know, I would like to think it's true in some ways. The extra backwards compatibility would be fantastic. The power, if used, would be great. But I don't know. I'm really unsure about these specifications, and if they are true, I'd love to see them, in a way, be true, just simply because I would like to see how they would be implemented, but I'm going to take this with a somewhat dose of skepticism and some dose of interest. I think some of them could possibly well be true. The controller has been semi-rumoured by others. The operating system, it wouldn't surprise me at all. There have been numerous agreements that it's going to be Windows 8, and therefore I wouldn't be surprised if the Windows App Store thing turned out to be true. Whether this guy's just kind of making that up, or whether it's, actually true and he's just commenting on that, I don't know, but it really wouldn't surprise me if that was the case. It would be pretty fantastic if it was. The Kinect 2 thing, I wouldn't be surprised if that was true. Regardless of whether he has any input on this or knows anything, I wouldn't really be surprised if it's true. But in terms of the actual SoC being in the console, I'm not saying that it's false. I'm not, because they're rumors. And the thing about rumors is that, be honest, I'm going to use this example until the cows come home, but we didn't know that PS4 was using 8 gigs of GDDR5 RAM. All of the the leaks and everything else said it's going to be using 4. We didn't know it was going to be using 8. We just thought it was going to be using 4. That was it. We didn't know it was going to literally be doubled. And we knew that Sony were, the rumors that they wanted more. There were rumors that they wanted 6 or possibly 8, but no one thought they were going to do it. All of the leaks said that they were going to just stick with 4 gigs of GDR5 RAM, and lo and behold, what happened? That's right, it came with 8. So in other words, sometimes they can sneak things through. After all, it's not like, the designer for the console is the one that's leaking this stuff. In other words, a lot of these guys are sworn to secrecy or they'll be beheaded. I'm, of course, kid, but you know what I mean. They wouldn't be very happy that this stuff leaked. Therefore, they don't let it leak because it's to their benefit not to leak it. If you work for Microsoft, you have a vested interest in Microsoft succeeding, and therefore you do not want to leak it to your rivals. That's not to say that their rivals don't possibly know or have an idea. They probably have a better idea than us. Sony have most likely a better idea of what's going on in Microsoft headquarters than we do, possibly because of industrial espionage. But regards this to everything else, whether this is true, if the Xbox 720 does have the 360 SoC, it will make backwards compatibility great, and indeed, if they can do stuff like texture streaming, it will be interesting. I'm just very unsure about this at the moment. So, yeah. I don't really know what to say about this one. If you guys want to, wax lyrically about this one, feel free. I'm not going to come down on one side or the other, because it wouldn't surprise me if it was true, because, well, quite simply put, they are Microsoft. They have been, it's actually true that they have actually been hiring some of these guys that obviously, he said about, from IBM and AMD, of course, and there are a reason they would do that, which obviously, they, especially AMD, are very good at building SoCs, or IBM as well, to be fair. But honestly speaking, I'm not going to say that it's not. I'm not going to say that it is. I'm going to say that I don't really know what to say for this one. It's kind of an interesting one. There are arguments on both sides of the fence. I've been reading comments on various websites, and they're all blowing up. And no one's really taking a balanced stand, of course. Everyone's, giving their massive, kind of yelling down the other person's throat. So yeah, if you guys want to comment, feel free. I'll try to respond the best I can. One thing for sure, it will all become clear in May, hopefully, as long as they don't push it back to like E3 or something similar. But I'm really hoping right now that they just clear this stuff up, because it's kind of driving me nuts. Anyway, I think that's just about it for now. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video. It's been a bit of a confusing one, at least for me. Yeah. I know I don't normally sound a bit unsure on videos, but this one I am, because quite honestly, I really wasn't expecting to hear about a 360 SoC because of all the contrary rumours. But at the same time, I don't like to dismiss stuff because it could well be true as well. So yeah. Anyway, bit of a confusing one, that one. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video regardless. Take care and bye for now.